On an autumn morning in 105 BC, the Roman general Quintus Silius Sue set out from his camp near the Rhone River, eagerly awaiting the impending battle. A massive Roman army, numbering over 100,000, including camp followers, faced a tribal force led by the Cimmerian king Porich and the Teutonic king Tabet. Their warriors, numbering over 200,000, presented a formidable challenge, while the Romans faced the imminent clash. Discord had already emerged within their ranks. The Capetians and the consul Gnaeus Malus Maximus, driven by personal ambition, found themselves at odds despite Mallus's plea for cooperation. The Capetian refusal scattered the Roman forces. As the battle approached, Cimmerian warriors surrounded the Roman camps. The consequences of a divided Roman command were clear, as the Capetians had hoped to support Malus in the face of an imminent Cimmerian attack. In the 2nd century BC, the European continent witnessed a tapestry of tribes, and Rome, the rising power, was strongly present at the heart of it all in ancient times, but beyond the reach of Roman dominance. In the dark corners of this ancient continent, many tribes lurked amidst this patchwork of peoples, each with its own stories, customs, and aspirations. One name aroused both curiosity and concern. The Cimmerians, arriving from the far north of Jutland in the late 2nd century BC, set out on a migration that sent waves of anxiety across the tribal landscape of Europe. They were just one of many tribes that indiscriminately raided every other tribe they encountered. Led by the Teutonic tribes, Simon, Marum, Mani, and Po, to name a few. Led by their king Boreax, the Cimmerians continued their trek across Europe with the Jan and Umbro. They came into conflict with the Boii and other Celtic tribes. Rome's treaty-bound allies, the Tuti, raised the alarm about the Cimmerians' imminent arrival. It was in 113 BC when consul Caius Papyrus Carabo decided to defend his allies and confront the Cimmerians. His chosen battlefield was Nora, located in the heart of Austria. However, the Roman consul's ambitions outweighed his military prowess, and he suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of the Cimmerians. Not content with their victory over Caro, the Cimmerians continued their migration, leaving Rome in a state of anxiety. Instead of heading west to the Italian peninsula, they headed west into Gaul with the Germans. They continued their migration, upsetting the balance of power and clashing with other tribes and Rome's allies amid these threats. Rome faced another challenge across the Mediterranean as tensions escalated in Numidia due to the betrayal of King Jura, leading to war in 107 BC. Gaius I, one of Rome's most promising leaders, replaced Rome's commander in Numidia to wage war against the troublesome king. The concurrence of these two wars tested Roman military strength in 107 BC as the war in Numidia continued. The Roman Senate organized another campaign against the Cimmerians, with an army of 40,000 troops under the command of consul Lucius Cassio Longinus. A massive army composed of Carthaginian Cimmerians and Tigarians defeated a Germanic Celtic alliance near Tossa. At Palla, a massive army composed of Carthaginian Cimmerians and Tigarians defeated the Roman army, killing the consul and senior officers. News of the defeat angered Rome, but also threatened the city. Other Celtic Germanic tribes, often subject to the Romans, seized the opportunity and rose up the following year. Rome's two new consuls, Quintus Silius Capio and the spy Aetius Sanus, began preparing for revenge. Capio was appointed governor of Gaul and embarked on a mission to reimpose Roman authority over his rebellious allies. During his campaign he recaptured Tossa, where he collected a vast treasure, believed by some to have come from a famous Delian temple. However, the focus on the theft of the treasure obscures many details of the campaign. There is a wealth of information about the activities of local tribes during this period. Following their earlier victory over Rome, the Cimmerians appear to have changed their culture, moving away from southern Gaul. They refrained from advancing into Italy, despite their previous inclination to settle there. Frustration and despair may have gripped the Cimmerians, who had still not reached a peaceful settlement after 7 years of conflict. While they recognized the impossibility of settling in Italy, they likely believed they could not settle in southern Gaul or Spain until Roman influence north of the Alps was eliminated. However, in the absence of the Cimmerians, Rome sent reinforcements to the region to prevent invading tribes from endangering their capital. They had two armies in Gaul, one under the first consul, Capio, and the other under the new consul, Malus. Although they were on the same side, they were assigned different provinces along the Rana River, in accordance with Roman tradition. Capio and Malus were known for their fierce rivalry, and were often unwilling to cooperate or aid each other. The events leading up to the Battle of Arausio are not well documented, but it appears that in early 105 BC, King Boric and the Cimmerians, accompanied by the Thunes and their king Tabut, returned to southern Gaul and encountered fresh Roman armies that were controlling the region and restoring peace. The Romans aimed to eliminate the tribal threat once and for all. The Roman force numbered approximately 120,000, of which 880,000 were divided into 10 to 12 legions. In addition, the Romans mobilized 40,000 auxiliaries and auxiliaries. The Roman armies faced an overwhelming tribal force that could have numbered as many as 300,000. According to some accounts, this formidable force included the Taurians, Teutons, and Ambonids. They were commanded by the Cimmerian king Boric and king Tutankhamun. Prior to the Battle of Arausio, the first confrontation between the Romans and the Cimmerians had taken place. A Roman force led by Aurelius Scaurus, an envoy of Malus, encountered a vastly outnumbered Cimmerian army. His forces were ambushed and defeated. Some of his soldiers survived, but most were captured or killed. Scaurus was captured and taken to Porec. He refused to lead the Cimmerians across the Alps because of his language. It remains unclear how the Romans eventually learned of this story, but it appears that Scaurus demanded the Cimmerians return, dissuading them from crossing the Alps and invading Italy. His defiance was not appreciated, and King Boric ordered his execution. Meanwhile, near the Rhone River, Malus and Capio had set up their camps on the riverbanks. Both commanders were driven by personal ambition and a desire to claim individual glory. The nearest settlement was the town of Arausio. Consul Malus, realizing the impending threat, sent a message to Chio urging him to combine their forces to confront the Cimmerians. However, Chio refused to cooperate. Chio's refusal to cooperate with Malus resulted in the Roman forces operating as separate armies rather than a united front. Before the battle, the Cimmerians had sent envoys to the Romans, perhaps out of fear or a desire to gain land for their tribe to settle on. However, the Cimmerians were unlikely to cooperate or accept his terms. Chio rudely expelled the Cimmerians. The envoys infuriated the Cimmerians. When battle became inevitable, Kings Boric and Thebod launched the attack. It remains unclear how the lack of cooperation between the Roman commanders affected the battle itself. Capio's army, closest to the Cimmerians, bore the brunt of the battle when the Cimmerians attacked. Roman historians suggest that Capio launched a counterattack in the hope that Ajax would provide support. The Roman legionaries and the Cimmerians engaged in a pitched battle. The engagements were chaotic and close. The disciplined Roman legionaries faced the relentless Cimmerian attacks. The battlefield reverberated with the sounds of clashing weapons and clashing warriors as the two sides fought fiercely for control in hand-to-hand combat. However, Capio's attack ultimately failed, leading to his withdrawal, and his camp was exposed. The Cimmerians plundered and looted his camp. Some of the legionaries attempted to defend the camp, but the Cimmerians mercilessly massacred the camp's followers and soldiers, and it is likely that some of the surviving Romans retreated. Although Malus's army was unsure whether the legions had clashed, this likely increased the chaos among the victory-hungry Romans. Following this easy victory, the Cimmerians rushed to attack Maximus's camp. According to Roman historians, internal discord pushed the Roman legion to the brink. Their camps were closely spaced, and most of the soldiers lived in close company. This further eroded morale as the Cimmerians approached and launched attacks on the Roman camp. Many legionaries held out, attempting to defend themselves, but the sheer number of warriors soon proved overwhelming. Under different circumstances, a retreat might have been possible, but the camp's poor location left them trapped by a riverbed. The river formed a natural barrier, leaving the Romans trapped and vulnerable. Although many attempted to flee, the difficulties of the heavily armed river frustrated their efforts, and only a few, including servants and camp followers, succeeded in withdrawing. The battle itself resulted in heavy losses for the Romans, according to Rutilius. The losses were staggering, with at least 70,000 regular and lightly armed soldiers killed in a single day. Other ancient accounts place the losses at between 60,000 and 80,000 Roman and allied soldiers. Livy cites Phaleros Antius, for example, who asserts that the Romans lost an estimated 880,000 soldiers and 40,000 servants and camp followers. This defeat at Arausio was one of the most significant and devastating in Roman history. Military setbacks, no less devastating than the Battle of Cannae. Although no detailed account of the battle survives, its impact on Roman history remains profound, demonstrating the devastating consequences of divided leadership and military mismanagement. Only 10 men are said to have survived the crushing defeat that followed. After capturing Roman hats and large amounts of booty, the Cimmerians launched a widespread campaign of destruction, systematically destroying captured clothing, throwing gold and silver into the river, cutting down armor, destroying horse traps, drowning horses, and hanging men from trees. However, the decisive factor contributing to the Roman defeat was not only numerical inferiority, but also the lack of coordination between the two Roman commanders. This deadly combination of personal ambition and overconfidence in the strength of the Roman army proved disastrous. Many details remain relatively unknown due to the lack of surviving accounts covering the battle. The devastating aftermath of the battle brought widespread grief to Italy. Under these bleak circumstances, the Romans believed that a Gallic invasion, similar to the one in Cimmeria, was imminent. They feared a repeat of Rome's great defeat, which still casts a shadow over Roman history in 387 BC at the Allia River. A Gallic alliance defeated the Romans before sacking the capital. But amid these turbulent circumstances, news arrived that Marius had succeeded in capturing Goggia and ending the Duran War. Marius was elected consul in 104 BC and was re-elected 4 more times, heralding Marius's reign and cementing his position as a pivotal figure in the coming Cimmerian wars.